welcome to another episode of Dial In, the podcast about customer service, automation, AI, call centers, and anything in between. I'm your host, Gadi Shamia, CEO and co-founder at Replicant, the company that automate customer service calls. And today I have a very special guest. It's the first time that we flip roles. Kevin McLaughlin is a reporter from The Information, and he interviewed me a couple of times. And I thought it'd be really interesting to switch roles and sit in the interviewer seat once, maybe give him a taste of his own medicine. So welcome to the show, Kevin.
Thank you, Gadi. Thanks for having me.
So tell us a bit about tell us about The Information. I know a lot of people in Silicon Valley knows it really well, but maybe outside of it, not that much. And what are you focusing on as a writer there?
Happy to. The Information is coming up on its 10th anniversary in December. And when it launched back in 2013 was really the first kind of non-company to start charging a subscription for technology news way back when. And obviously, a lot of the industry has sort of followed down the path of doing just that. So basically, even today, the mission has not changed. It's about getting news that is not available anywhere else. It's about going deep on topics. Basically, these days, we are writing quite a lot about generative AI, but not only things like large language models and OpenAI and ChatGPT and things like that. But we're very focused on, for example, GPU chips and the supply of those chips and who's getting them and who's not. So yeah, we cover a range of different topics from cryptocurrency to cybersecurity and many other things. But yeah, we try to kind of get the news before anyone else.
Yeah, and subscriber for, 5-6 years now. Definitely enjoyed The Information. What are you focusing on in your coverage?
So I was one of the first reporters hired to cover enterprise software. And this was I've been there since 2016. At that time was really, I was still writing about Hewlett-Packard Enterprise and Oracle and companies like that, because that is sort of my background. I worked at CRN for 11 years. And I covered the channel and all of the issues that solution providers face on a daily basis. So over time, my beat has sort of morphed into becoming more focused on things like Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud. We've had lots to write about in recent years, even before generative AI came to the fore. And I like to sort of vary my diet. I cover a range of companies. I don't have just like one topic that I write about. But I would say that right now, generative AI is touching everything. So it seems like every story of interest for our readers has some connection to that technology.
So let's pause for a second and explain to the listeners what's generative AI and how is it different than all the other flavors of AI that some people heard about, but many didn't before actually the launch of ChatGPT last year.
Sure. Yeah, we do a lot of explaining in our jobs. So I'm not super technical, so my explanations might be a little too simplistic for some viewers, I should warn. But basically, generative AI is this term that's being applied to services that can do things like write original poems or blog posts or press releases, or on the image side and video, you can type in a text prompt and create original art, video, things like that. And so all of this is powered by large language models, which are trained on enormous amounts of data, both on the internet and through other places, trained to the point where they can just basically create text and video and images. And the way they do that is sort of a little technical, and I don't want to go too far down that road. But what's striking to me is that cloud-based machine learning has been around for nearly a decade, I think, since I think Microsoft was the first to launch a cloud service. And so these services existed for many years, AI services, but it really wasn't until ChatGPT that this current fire started. And I've been covering technology for more than 20 years. I think never really seen something, a technology blow up this quickly. Cloud computing was obviously the buzzword a decade ago, or even longer than that ago, but we never saw the speed with which generative AI has occupied the collective consciousness of the tech industry. And so I think it's fascinating in that regard, just to see, again, like one of the interesting topics we write about is how legacy companies or older companies are sort of jumping onto this trend because they need to do so. And so, yeah, that's basically the big picture.
Yeah, the speed is somehow even amusing to me. I started my first AI team back at Talktus in 2017, and of course then start working at late 2018 on Replicant, and now we're at what, 2023. So this is 7 years almost of working on AI. And it's so surprising to me that smart people, venture capitalists, people come to me and say they just discovered AI. And we've been using AI for photo sorting for years. We've been using it for conversations we did for years. But then I think ChatGPT kind of made it available and accessible to everyone, which really changed a lot. And maybe just referring to your explanation, which I thought was great, and we definitely don't try to be very, very tactical, very technical here. To me, the brain metaphor, the mental metaphor I have is that, at least for us in call center automation, before generative AI, we had to draw a map, and we use AI to decide where to turn. So a map will be, here are all the things we can ask about, here's all the conversation points we can have, and we use AI to transcribe what you said into words, but then take your words and decide, turn right, turn left. There's maybe 50 possible turns, but which one should we take in order to continue the conversation? We couldn't create a path. Our AI could not have created a new novel path in real time, where generative AI that we're now using can create a path in real time. There's no longer a map. You can actually carve the path within more of a range, of course. So you cannot go we don't go everywhere with customer service, but we can now carve paths that were never carved before based on the question people ask. We don't have to pre-think about all of them, which kind of create endless possibilities. So the mapped version was the previous generation of AI, and the more of the unmapped, here's the land, playing it, is the version we're playing with it right now, which I think, at least to me, it's a useful mental model. So let's jump into AI as a hot topic, and you've been covering technology for a long time. How would you compare AI to maybe the three biggest revolutions we have? Internet, mobile, AI. I think it's kind of the three big ones that come to mind. You mentioned maybe smaller ones in between, like cloud computing and infinite capacity around the others. How would you position AI compared to the others you've seen in your career?
Well, it seems that the other ones sort of set the stage for the current wave of generative AI interest, right? Because 10 years ago, there was cloud storage, and certainly there were companies doing machine learning in the cloud. But I think that maybe the rise of cloud services becoming more economical to use, as well as the power of GPUs as well, kind of two factors, right, that have contributed to this. Again, I think it's a really interesting question, because something happened when ChatGPT came out to show companies that these things were possible, but certainly the people building the technologies knew that these things were possible. I'm frankly, I can't wait until 5 or 10 years from now when someone writes the book, and maybe it'll happen before then, about what exactly was the spark. Like, why are we suddenly talking about generative AI? Like, it's been here, but it just hasn't been here as we've known it now. So I don't know if that makes sense, but that's kind of the way I look at it. And I guess going back to, I covered cloud computing for so long, and what strikes me is, even today, there's still a lot of industries, a lot of banks and other types of regulated companies that are looking at the cloud. They're still kind of like making their moves. And now you have this new thing, generative AI. I feel like generative AI is the force that really will make cloud finally ubiquitous, because even if you're in a regulated industry, you're going to have to figure out how to start playing with this stuff. And to do that, you're going to need cloud capacity, and you're going to need the data to put some of your data in there. So I feel like all things that have happened over the last 20 years have really got us to this point.
Yeah, I think the reason why ChatGPT made so much noise is that it brought AI in a different format to the forefront. I think when we use Google Photos or Amazon Photos and search for specific things, it felt like search. And even Google search results that are powered by AI for years, it felt like search, and it was just better search. So it was more nuanced, whereas now we're seeing a whole new capability, and it's available to everyone. Like my 94-year-old father played with it last time I visited him, and at the same time, like kids at 6 years old play with it. So all of a sudden, AI in a very specific human-like ability language, which is the one thing we do all day. We either talk or write all day long or read. Like this is what we do. All of a sudden, we got a showcase of, hey, there's a machine that does exactly that. We don't search photos all day long, so it didn't feel like AI is doing that. It felt like, oh, Google just now know how to search photos. Who cares how? So I think that what made such a big splash. But if you try to compare the impact of it, I'm asking you to do a bit of prediction here. Of course, they're all laying one on top of the other. Where do you think AI will rank in the impact it made on us compared to the internet, compared to mobile?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think we're definitely looking at certain industries being automated. We were talking about this, you and I, earlier this year. I think the call center was already on track for automation in a lot of areas before generative AI. This current wave blew up, and so I guess that'll obviously continue. But things like building web pages, perhaps even things like writing press releases and blog posts, and of course, the big question for us in the newsroom sometimes is, how far does this automation go? And even as of today, I don't think that AI can actually do all of the work of a reporter, which includes like building relationships with people and building sources, and also just kind of vetting what is important and what's not. But certainly in other areas, there's going to be a big impact. I don't want to, I'm not really answering the question very much, but I would say that, I'm in the camp where it has looked previously like technology advancements were going to wipe out a bunch of jobs and entire industries. And it never quite happened the way that the doomsayers said it would. And I'm hopeful that this time around, it will also happen in a way that isn't too disruptive. But I guess no one really knows. It's total guesswork, I think, from my perspective. No one really knows how far generative AI can go.
Mm-hmm. So let's stay close to home for a second. You talk about jobs, you talk about the job of a reporter. We can talk about others too, but let's stay close to home for a second. If you think of the reporter in 5 years from now, what will be how would you use AI, and which are the unique attributes? You mentioned some like building relationship, which obviously this is the reason why we talk now. But what will be the role of a reporter? What will be the role of the AI? How will they collaborate in your opinion?
Frankly, I don't use it. I don't use ChatGPT in the course of my work, and the reason is it could be a useful tool, and it is for many reporters. I guess I'm kind of old and traditional, and I don't want any help with writing. That's probably to my detriment, because I think that there are areas where, especially with sort of constructing a story and organizing a story, and there are areas in which summarization technology, which obviously you're using it Replicant as well, I'm sure. That's really valuable, especially one of the things reporters often, and when you're on deadline as a reporter, you just don't have the time to do certain things that you'd like to do. So I think that piece of it is really interesting. But I keep saying in the modern world, you have to sort of accept that modern technology can help you, and I'm sure I'll get there someday, but I guess I'm just kind of old and crotchety that way.
But if you need to kind of get out of your own kind of viewpoint, what were you envision? You mentioned summarization. Where other areas you envision AI can help? And again, what's unique about humans that you think is not going to change anytime soon?
I think I'm also in this camp where the generative AI craze, and I'm not super technical, so I don't want to sort of take one side or the other, but is this really AI in the sense of like, how close are we to AGI, artificial general intelligence? Like that's obviously the real holy grail of this race. It doesn't feel like we're really close to being there yet. There's even some talk recently about hallucinations, which is the inaccurate output that some of these large language models can produce, leading to false information. There's even the risk of defamatory information. So I just think there's a long way to go. And we've certainly, the things that are happening now are exciting. But how many technologies have this sort of linear progression, right? I mean, there's going to be setbacks, there's going to be disillusionment, I think. How are banks going to use generative AI with the risk of hallucinations? I mean, when you're dealing with money, obviously the stakes are a lot different than, if you're asking ChatGPT to write a poem about baseball in the voice of Chaucer's Canterbury Tales. So, basically, to answer your question, I think that there's still so much left there's a lot more work and development left before it can really become mainstream.
Yeah, it's actually when you said it, remind me of in the medical space, there's very known phenomena that happen with every new approved medication that has major implications. There's this first few years of excitement, and there's always a throw of disillusionment when more side effects are discovered. And then prescription kind of get more balanced between the needs of a patient and the actual side effects and the impact. And I think it's the same with technologies. They always sound really exciting at first. It just medicine give us more data because there's tens or hundreds of new medication that come online every year, and you can literally track it. With technologies, like what is a big one, what is a small one, is a little hard to know. But I agree that there's a lot to understand, and we already see some data. I think we've been covering in the recent time that ChatGPT growth has slowed down. Maybe it's a summer effect, and students don't try to do their homework. But there's definitely questions around: did it reach already its viability? Was the or does it hit a chasm of some sort?
Yeah.
What's your kind of take on that?
Oh, absolutely. I think that isn't it human nature to kind of become enthralled with new things and then get bored with them? I mean, so I do expect to see that. But again, the technology is also moving forward very quickly. So, and I'm not really sure that previous technology waves have happened this quickly. So maybe we're looking at something for which there is no historical comparison. That would be my take on it.
Yeah, and again, technology, it always takes time. I think today I cannot imagine my life without a mobile phone. I cannot imagine my life without the internet. If you ask me in probably 2004, 5 was the early adopter, BlackBerry, etc., I could probably absolutely imagine my life 3-4 years into the initial mobile revolution without a mobile phone. It takes time for it to become a habit. Today, I can totally, as a consumer, can imagine my life without ChatGPT or without AI. I think we're also going to get to a point where there's so much reliance on AI, especially in companies, that now removing it will be impossible. We're just not quite there yet. So maybe take a step back and be a bit more generic. You cover enterprise software as a whole. Set aside AI. What are some of the other trends that are kind of interesting? What do you see in the market that worth sharing with our listeners?
I think that cybersecurity in the cloud is going to become what I'm searching for. It's not an issue because there hasn't been a major cloud breach in which a cloud provider suffered data loss or customer.
Would they say that?
Yeah. So look, hackers. It's a constant cat and mouse game, and the hackers are winning. There's no question about that. And so, I guess armed with AI tools now, it's kind of scary to imagine what they'll be capable of. I'm not saying that any particular cloud is going to be hacked or that there are deficiencies in the cloud, but it just feels like there have been many cases of customers inadvertently leaving data exposed in the cloud. It's one topic I think is very interesting is the shared responsibility model and whether that could change over time, because are providers doing enough to protect customers from themselves? So yeah, I think cybersecurity is one thing I'm very sort of focused on in the future. I think that the race for developer mindshare has always been an interesting one to me, and obviously Microsoft and Google and every company has its own kind of ecosystem that is their strength and sort of almost serves as employees of the company in certain ways, advancing their goals and their strategies. The battle for developers in generative AI is going to be massive, and I don't know quite what angles to cover this story yet, but I do know one thing that's interesting to me is that traditional software development is really nothing like machine learning development, and it requires new skills. And I remember reading OpenAI president and co-founder Greg Brockman had written about this at some point, where he had acknowledged, he's like, wow, this is a whole different discipline. And he went and learned it in some ridiculously small time frame, how to do that, how to make that transition. So I think that is something I'm keeping an eye on too, is just kind of like, who's going to win that battle? Microsoft, obviously a very strong developer company. Now it has OpenAI. Google's got its own developer army, AWS. So, are the winners of the cloud going to be the winners in AI? That's a big question.
Yeah, and this is where we look at that. Cloud computing started with AWS, and Google maybe came running second, and then Azure with Microsoft came in third in order, not 30 in size, and now it looks like it's almost reverse. Microsoft reacted first in this one, where Google came in second, and Amazon, despite all its investment in AI, is maybe coming in third. And then there's other companies like Anthropic and others that are creating a standalone presence, which didn't happen with cloud computing the same exact way. So definitely super interesting. When you look at enterprise priorities, do you hear from, you've been talking with companies and maybe customers, do you hear that AI is like first priority, or just us in the Silicon Valley hear it all the time, and in reality it's topic 4 or 5?
I don't have detailed knowledge about what's going on inside companies, but I do get the impression from sources that I've spoken with that this is the cloud like circa maybe 2010, just to kind of pull a number out there, maybe even 2012. And what I mean by that is everyone wants to do it and knows they're going to have to do it, and they're certainly testing it out. But is it really ready for everyone to be incorporating into core products, business operations, things like that? Maybe for some companies, but not for everyone. So it's the old analogy where if everyone's talking about it, it means that probably very few are actually doing it.
Mm-hmm. And in the fad versus reality, when you see announcement from companies that we added this AI and that AI, help the consumer here, how much, or the enterprise buyer, how much do you think we're hearing fad from companies just want to run the press release game and make sure they say they do something in AI, and how many of this product are actually real?
Yeah, I forget who posted this. There was a discussion on Twitter, X, sorry, recently about just recalling what they used to call cloud washing, which is when every company like a decade or so ago started saying everything they did was cloud, and it was really literally just like slapping the name onto existing products. I mean, we saw this happen with big data even before the cloud. So yeah, you're seeing some of that happening for sure. But I do think, and we've talked to a lot of companies that we've kind of come away wondering, like, do they really have a plan, or are they putting on a brave face? And I won't go into the details about what companies they are, but yeah, you can see it. some companies have a plan and some don't. And some of those companies that don't are surprisingly large, well-known names.
Yeah, I'm chuckling a little bit because I was at SAP when the company don't have any cloud story. So instead of calling our products multi-tenancy, it was called mega tenancy, which just meant one server per customer. So that was the mega tenancy. It's like instead of the customer installing the servers, we install the servers and the customer is using it over the internet. That was the SAP cloud story back in 06, 07, which was ridiculous as it sounded. You showed interest in customer service before. This is how we connected. We have a couple of conversations. Maybe what sparked your interest in this space specifically?
Yeah, this wasn't really an area I paid much attention to before 2017, but the light really came on for me because we reported that year that AWS was working on a service that is now known as Amazon Connect, which is an automated call center service based in the cloud. And the thing that struck me as interesting at that time was, again, this is 2017, and there was lots of talk about enterprise AI and sort of a similar situation where I don't think there was as much pressure for companies to have an enterprise AI story at that time. But this, to me, the Amazon service was really kind of the first intersection where you had like a traditional, like, I don't want to say old, but well-established industry like call centers merging with the cloud in a way that like made it better, right? And Amazon also was using the technology that it used in-house to support its own customers for Amazon.com. So obviously they were taking the crown jewels from one side and sort of bringing it to the other. So yeah, that ever since then, I think I've been very interested. We've also written, obviously during the pandemic, there was this mini wave of everyone being interested in call center, and then you also had the incorporation of user experience into that as well, which is another area which I'm not super well versed in, so I don't want to speak too freely about it. But it seemed like during the pandemic, at least, call center was morphing to become something larger than just call center. I'm sure that's probably still happening, but now there's this new technology, generative AI, to take into account. So actually, I'd be interested to know your take on things, whether is call center going to continue evolving in this way?
Yeah, and here you go. You just jump into your comfortable position and you ask me questions. I'll switch back. We definitely. So I've been in the contact center space now for 9 years. I joined Talkdesk as a COO back in late 2014. And what attracted me to Talkdesk at the time was that I've seen the need in a contact center software, which was practically software that connects agents to customers and deal with queuing, routing, and all the other things. At the end of the day, there's a customer on one side, agent on one side. You can take notes. There's integrations. There's a lot of interesting stuff there. And the entire industry was either on-prem at the time or I call it semi-cloud, cloud but client installed your computer, cloud but media server in the closet. And Talkdesk was purely browser-based cloud solution, just like Salesforce was, which was not that this was innovative, but in 2014, the only solution you can log in from every computer without installing anything from anywhere in the world was Talkdesk. So that was interesting about this product at the time. And of course, now there's Amazon, there's AWS, Nice in Contact, Genesis, there's other players that can offer the same solution. And what I haven't realized at the time, especially because AI was so new and nascent and slow, is that the entire stack of customer service was built around the agent, and actually not only around the agent, but around the limitation of the agent model, which is there's not enough agents at any given moment to answer all the calls. It's a boring job. Therefore, we have to keep the agent focused with tools like workforce management and workforce optimization. The customers will always have to wait, so we have to have sophisticated queuing tools and IVR so that you can waste their time until they talk with someone. The whole thing was designed around the idea that there's always going to be more calls, more contacts than agents, and agents don't really love their job, which is still true. And what I see AI change in the contact center is that all of a sudden we see a world at which a lot of this calls start being funneled to AI, and agents can start doing the more interesting work, which is connecting with people, being creative, thinking outside the box, which improves the agent perspective about the work. It's improved the customer satisfaction, but it's also changed the design. And to me, this is maybe the most profound topic. It changes the design of the contact center toolset to be customer-centric. What's the fastest way to answer a question by a customer or resolve an issue for a customer, and much less agent-centric. It doesn't hurt the agent, actually. It just may be reverting to what should have been from the beginning. At the end of the day, every tool we build should serve our customers and not necessarily our internal employees, which is what this technology did. So maybe long story short, definitely see customer of ours are already taking 30-40% of the calls and automating them using AI to a full resolution, not for a deflection. I think it will change how agents are perceived. They're no longer going to be the job you outsource to the Philippines, or even to a cheaper place in the Philippines, which was the race we've seen in the last few years. It will become a job where you need to be excited about what you serve and who you serve, because the mundane stuff is going to be solved by AI. That's kind of my take. I'm not sure if this is what you see in the market too.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I reverted back to being a reporter. I can't help myself. I do think that contact center is such an interesting and really undercovered topic in the mainstream technology media. And I say that because what is more universal than the frustration of being on a bad customer service line or trying to get in touch with a company and they just don't make it easy? That's probably the most universal frustration in this country, at least.
Yeah, it's and I think that the race for providing great customer service is something which just felt unaffordable for companies before. I think what one thing AI will do is not necessarily replace jobs, and we can go back and talk about that, but it's actually change them, because agents stay in their job today for an average of 13 or 14 months, depends on which statistic you're looking at. And this average is an average. There's people are there for 30 years, but many just stay for 6 months. And the cost of training somebody for 2 months, and then they actually just work for 4 months, is immense. All our customers say that you cannot hire enough people because the job is just not attractive anymore. It's a little bit like a farming job or many other jobs we just don't like to do anymore. And I do see a lot of hope that the agents that will stay will be the one that really care about customer service and can grow their career this way. Last question is, if you need to imagine the contact center of the future with what you know about AI, how does it look like?
I want to call a company and I want to not have to answer a bunch of questions. And so the more that they know about me before we even begin the call, the better. I know that this exists today. So, maybe, it's really hard to say where things go. What else would I want? I just want to not have to do it as much. And so, for example, had an issue with a rental car company, and I think that the time is so valuable that not having to do a call. So I don't know the answer to the question, to be honest. I guess if there was a way to just have it be handled over email or not on the phone.
I think you mentioned two really important points. One is you just want to do it less, which I think that there is a huge role in automation and doing it less. And you want to be known when you call, which you don't want to waste time explaining yourself every time. Which, again, I think it's a great trend, and we're only at the beginning of it. I'll give you an example of something we do today, which really plays into you just don't want to do it. I just talked earlier for this podcast with one of our customers at AAA, and one of the things that they implement with us is an update call when ETA of a tow truck is delayed. They call and inform the customer, and you ask why they call versus just text, or they call because before they called, customers will now call back the inbound line and get in the way of people that actually need initial help. So the people just get stuck, will be delayed because somebody is calling to us, hey, what's happening with my tow truck? But if initially these calls are interactive because people might have got help from someone, a good Samaritan passed by and helped them, or maybe they don't feel safe anymore and you want to expedite the service or whatever the reason is. So this call became interactive, so people can actually say, no, I'm actually not where I told you I am. I'm a gas station down. I was able to get a boost, and I'm now in the gas station 3 miles down, because you don't want a tow truck to go back and forth and look for to the driver. So this is one example of removing the burden of the customer to from calling customer service by saying, about now they're probably going to call us and ask where's the tow truck. So maybe we should call them before. I think that's a great one great example that I've seen. Cool. So again, close to time. So we're going to run our speed dial, which is a quick segment. I'm going to ask you one question, and you be answering like one sentence. So it's going to be more rapid fire. What's maybe you already said it, but what's your preferred method of reaching customer service, and why? And this is today, not what will be in the future.
Text.
Text. Why?
So many. It's funny for me personally. I actually, my first job out of college, I worked in telemarketing, and I worked for a chocolate company, and I called existing customers to see if they wanted to reorder. And a lot of times I would get hung up on and things like that. And so I guess maybe that impacts how I feel about calling, because I know that, like, the person on the other line may not be, and I was rarely empowered. I just had a very focused job to do in that job, and I did it. So yeah, I hate, it sounds antisocial to say, but the less sort of phone-based interactions, the less chance there is for friction.
I don't know if I would judge you as someone that spend most of his day speaking with people. So I don't think that you're going to be deemed antisocial. So I know that being a telemarketer in a chocolate company was not the high point of your career. This possibly could be automated with AI today. What's the high point of what has been the high point of your career?
Oh, working at the information for sure. And the reason I say that is because I've been a reporter for 20 years or so, and being given the leeway to go deep on stories is a luxury that not every media outlet has. And so that's been the best part, because a lot of these topics, they take a long time to get your head around. And then even when you do, you realize that there are new nuances and angles that perhaps you didn't see before. And so you can only get there when you're going in depth.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I love about the information. It does go in depth, and sometimes I don't have enough time to read all of it, but at least I know it's there and accessible. But if you're not a reporter, what would you be doing? What would be an alternative career in the dream world?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think like a lot of, we're talking about a career, not what would I do if I wasn't working.
What would you? Yeah, pick either.
Yeah, I think I grew up playing baseball. I've always wanted to be a baseball coach. I don't know if it's ever going to happen for me, but Little League baseball would be my thing.
Yeah, you have two kids. Like the future is clear for you.
Yeah, and that's never going to be automated. I think there's no AI coaches on the horizon.
Yeah, it's side note. I'm going out of the scope of that, but one of my friends run a company that train people that will fix washing machines, all home appliances. This probably is not going to be automated, and apparently we have massive shortage in this profession, as kind of the old generation is retiring. So there's definitely jobs that if you pick today, you're likely to have years and years and years of job security. One of them, if you're into repairing home appliances, it had to happen at home, and you need to have opposable thumbs, and it will take a while until robots will be able to be good enough to do that. On the spectrum, will AI destroy the world or do amazing things for the world?
I think do more amazing things. We didn't talk about this, and it's been talked about quite a lot, but I'm very hopeful in areas like education and medical industry, where there is a shortage of talent in certain areas. The ability for kids to get tutoring help if they're not doing well in class, the fact that this can be automated. These are all, like, the really powerful forces in our society that solve huge pressing problems. Yeah, I mean, there's lots of concern about things like weapons and other negative uses of the technology, but the toothpaste is out of the tube. I think all we can do at this point is just kind of try to carry it the society has to sort of be the regulators in terms of what we're comfortable with and not. And the media's job will also be to shine light on, as it has done already, in areas and companies that are doing things that maybe their employees aren't okay with.
Mm-hmm. And what's the public opinion about AI, I think, now versus maybe the beginning of the year? Has it improved, changed in any way?
I think it's improved in the sense of, it's funny, I'm sure you've experienced this and I have as well. Like whenever I tell someone I write about AI, it's always like killer robots, like, are they going to kill us all? And like, you go through all the same things that have been in Hollywood movies for decades. But this feels like something different. I think that maybe generative AI has emerged at a time like when we needed something new. And that has been why it's seen so much attention. And what I mean by that is just that, there hasn't been a major technological advancement like that. I mean, certainly cloud computing is, but when I try to explain cloud computing to my parents, their eyes glaze over. They don't get it. So generative AI is something everybody can understand, right? You can just type your text into the prompt and off you go. So yeah, I do think that people are starting to get it.
All right, my last question. After being in this podcast, who would you love to see here?
Okay. Well, are we talking people in the industry, other journalists, or just anyone?
Anyone was interesting and kind of know about AI, contact center, customer service, somebody you were impressed with, you talked with so many people, somebody that impressed you.
Yeah. Wow. That's a really tough one. I don't want to seem to be favoring any one particular company. I've talked to a lot of really great practitioners. Maybe someone who, like an older person who has grown up through the evolution of the contact center industry, and maybe is at the end of their career. It might be an interesting interview in the sense of like, they might feel like they were born at the wrong time, or maybe they felt like they were born at the right time. I don't know. It would be interesting to get their perspective.
That's a great angle and a great way to end it. Kevin, thank you so much for joining. It was a fascinating conversation. Time just flew. Thank you for everybody for dialing in. And until next time.
My pleasure.